So many of you have probably heard the story about former NFL superstar Phillip Adams, a man who brutally murdered an entire family. Oh, he killed a doctor, he killed the doctor's wife, and he killed their grandchildren, ages, like 5 and 6 years old, brutally murdered them all, and then shot himself. I remember seeing this story. It was a story with the headline, 5 Killed in South Carolina, Investigation Ongoing. Well, they did their investigation, and they found the perpetrator. The man's name is Phillip Adams. Now, many people have pointed this out online, but Phillip Adams was an African-American male, and the family that he brutally murdered, including the 2 little children, were white. Every single one of them. Here you can see the doctor, and he's with one of his little grandchildren here, and he's playing piano. So here's a picture. These are the 2 grandparents that were murdered. The victims' names are Dr. Lesslie, his wife, and the grandkids. I misspoke earlier. The children were Ada, who's 9 years old, and her brother Noah, who's 5 years old. You can see the girl here, 9 years old, Noah, 5 years old. They were both brutally shot by this man. Now, the reason I want to talk about this story is very simple. There's a lot of people trying to make excuses for this guy and saying that the reason this happened was because of head trauma. Give me a break. No, we're going to talk about that, folks. We're going to get into it. Before we do, remember to like, comment, subscribe, share the video. Not really in the mood today to do these plugs. Please support the channel, join me on Patreon, and I'm going to leave a link to the Virtue Signal card game. We're going to test this link out. Check it out. It's a really good card game. It's a parody of social justice activism. You play an SJW trying to collect NPCs, battling other players. It's really fun. It's really cool. And there's even a card with yours truly on it. So check out that link. We're testing out this new affiliate link if any of you do decide to purchase the game. Now let's continue here. Here on Twitter on SportsCenter, the gunman who killed 5 people, including a prominent doctor in South Carolina, was a former NFL pro, Phillip Adams, who killed himself early Thursday, according to a source who was briefed on the investigation. So we know this. This pretty much confirms what we have heard, and there's a lot of people asking questions. Why did this happen? But what annoys me more than anything is that people are making excuses. They're saying, it was football, it was an injury. Here Nathaniel says, all of you on here talking about race. Stop, 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 stop. Stop. Enough of this race crap. He was suffering from head trauma. I guess that makes it okay. So this is why a lot of people are slamming this opinion. Because if this was a white guy that killed a family of 5 black people or Asians, it would be all over the news. White evil bigot man murders these minority families, or family, or whatever the story is. It would be all over the news. And the media would push this agenda saying that white people are a problem, and you would never hear the end of it. But when it's a minority that commits one of these gruesome crimes, all you hear from the media is, oh no, he was suffering from mental problems. It was head trauma, folks. Nothing to see here, folks. If it was a white man, they would be calling this a hate crime. Do you see my problem with this logic? As a minority, it infuriates me that it's one-sided. There's this double standard. There's this bias. This could have very well been a hateful crime. I'm not about to discount that possibility because I live in the real world. Head injury or not, there was no excuse for this man to have murdered this family. And what I find more atrocious is that he killed a 9 and 5-year-old. Was it 9 and 6? The numbers right now don't mean anything to me. The fact is he killed 2 children, grandchildren. So not only did he murder this man, he murdered their genetic legacy, their future, their next generation. There's nothing more evil and despicable than that. Because if you ask me, he should be alive. He should not be dead. Because that way, he could rot in a prison cell for the rest of his pathetic life. Oh, Mr. Obvious, that's a little bit harsh. Don't you know he merely had a head injury? Oh, it's a head injury when a minority does something, but it's not a head injury or a mental illness when it's a white man. Here, Dana Shelby says, if all the people he killed is white, does that mean this was a hate crime? JJM says, yes. Blame CTE. When it's not a white guy behind the trigger sounds about BLM to me. Guns will be accessible no matter what. If people really want one, they will find it. How will stricter gun laws provide relief? It takes a good guy / a gun to stop a bad one. You people on the left have CTE. For those of you wondering, CTE stands for chronic traumatic encephalopathy. It essentially means a progressive and fatal brain disease associated with repeated traumatic brain injuries, concussions, repeated blows to the head, and is associated with dementia. This man had 2 concussions. However, it's important to note that he actually continued to play. So it's not that his brain concussions were so bad that he was not able to play football because he kept playing football. Mr. G says, we gonna see this on the news? Or nah, because it wasn't a white guy. Dakota says, dog, it's literally all over the news stations right now. Now, I want to make a very good point here. Right now, there is a lot of news stations talking about this story. However, not all of these news stations are actually showing the identity of the person who did this, or they're hiding the facts, as the media usually does in these cases. One of the litmus tests that you can use on modern media is, if you ever see any sort of story, maybe it's a good story, maybe it's a bad story, it doesn't really matter. If they name the perpetrator, the suspect, for example, most often it is probably someone who is Caucasian. What do I mean by this? Well, my point is, if there's a car accident, for example, caused by a drunk driver, and the perpetrator is a white man, they will show the identity of that person. White guy crashes car. That's what the headline will be. But if it happens to be any sort of other group, any other, like, minority group, or maybe even a majority minority group, the headline will just say, drunk man crashes car. This happens over and over again with news headlines. How do you know the background of a suspect in a story? Simple. Do they say the suspect is white? If they say they're white, they're white. If they don't say, they're not white. That is the modern litmus test. I find it despicable. I think that they should just name the perp. It doesn't matter what color they are. I don't really care. I want to see criminals punished, period. White, black, green, blue, I don't care. But it's really disgusting. It's absolutely disgusting how these people are, like, how the left, how these liberals are replying to this. Chief Costa says, CT and brain trauma strikes again. Oh, that silly CTE. When will they ever stop?
You can't keep getting away with it!
Shaking my head. This is always so sad. Rip to the 5 in prayers to Adam. Gets the rest that he needs. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? Did you just offer prayers to the murderer in this case? Why are you assuming that he had brain injuries? Even if he had brain injuries, I don't care. I do not care. He belongs in a prison cell, rotting for the rest of his miserable life. He's a murderer. And forget about murdering, like, his old doctor. Forget about that. Dr. Lesslie. Murdering children? I'm going to tell you for a fact, if he didn't take his own life, he would have been brutally murdered in prison, because it is well known that prisoners do not like people who abuse children, because many of them were abused as children themselves. If he had gone to jail, he would have been murdered like that. I mean, that's just the case. I don't agree with this kind of punishment, this kind of culture. I believe we need a legal system. I believe we need a system of laws that punishes people appropriate to the crime they commit. But I'm just saying that this is a real fact of real life. He probably would not have lasted very long in prison. Either way, no justice here. So this guy wasn't even the only victim. There was an HVAC technician who was working on Leslie's property who was also murdered. James Lewis, 38 years old, was also murdered. Lewis's co-worker, Robert Shook, a married dad of 3, was shot multiple times but survived. Adams, who was 32 years old, killed himself. We know all this. His father, Alonzo Adams, blamed the tragedy on football and said that his son was a good kid. Oh, a good kid. Brutally murders this white family. Totally a good kid. Totally. You know what? Anyone remotely defending this guy, in my opinion, like, if you're religious, I think that you're probably not in the right here. I'm going to put it nicely. You're not in the right here. Don't defend this guy. He's a murderer. Period. Brain damage or not. But you know what, my friends? That's pretty much the story. Some further details on what may be the motive behind this. Rep. Ralph Norman, a Republican from South Carolina, told WIS-TV that it is his understanding that Dr. Robert Lesslie was treating Adams and had stopped giving Adams medication. So according to law enforcement, they believe that this attack was because he was withholding medicine. Now keep in mind, Dr. Leslie's a doctor. I have my problems with doctors, but they don't tell me what kind of medicine it actually was. What was it? Painkillers? Some sort of antipsychotic? If I had to guess, it was probably like painkillers. And this guy was, look, I don't want to speak out of line because I don't know, but I don't care. You murdered children? You are the scum of the earth. You are lower than low. I'm never, ever in a million years going to defend a child killer. F you. F the system. F big tech. I don't give a I don't care. I don't care who you are. I'm not going to defend a child killer. You want to defend a child killer? That is your sin to bear. Okay? You live with that. You tell your friends and family that you defend child murderers. I don't. Okay? I don't. You happy? These bleeding hearts. These goddamn leftists. These are the 4 individuals who were murdered. What a tragedy. I just wanted to talk about this because I'm very aggravated that everybody is blaming brain injuries for what is obviously a brutal, needless, and criminal tragedy. I'm not religious, but bless this family. I hope that they can find some sort of peace. Probably impossible, I know, but warm wishes to the family. Warm wishes to the victims. I'm sorry this happened. This is inexcusable, and I'm done.